The timeline fractures in a single heartbeat. One moment you are standing in the comfort of modern convenience, and in the next, the grid goes black, the sirens start, or the news feed cuts to static. Most people will freeze. They will stare at their phones, waiting for an update that isn't coming, trapped in the lethal paralysis of normalcy bias. They believe order will be restored because order is all they have ever known. That belief is a confident mistake. You must kill that hope immediately. The old world is over, and the margin of error is now zero. You are no longer a citizen, a neighbor, or an employee. You are a biological entity in a hostile ecosystem, and your survival is now a brutal mathematical calculation. Do not look out the window. Do not check social media. Do not call your relatives to ask what they think. The time for discussion has evaporated. Hard logic, physics, biology, and crowd psychology are the only laws that matter now. You have a very narrow window, a golden hour, before the shock wears off and the collective panic sets in. While the masses are still processing the impossible, you must be executing the necessary. Every second you waste debating reality is a calorie burned that you cannot replace and a tactical advantage surrendered to the mob. The sun is going down, and if you are not secured, hidden, and lethal by nightfall, you are just a resource waiting to be harvested. This is not a drill. This is the new baseline. Stop feeling. Start operating. Move immediately to the perimeter. Your front door is no longer a barrier. Without the rule of law, it is merely a suggestion that physics will readily dismantle. A standard residential deadbolt is engineered to deter an honest opportunist, not to withstand the kinetic energy of a desperate human body moving at full velocity. You must operate under the assumption that the social contract is void. The first operational protocol is to alter the structural integrity of your entry points. Lock every latch, but do not trust them. You need mass and friction to counter external force. Drag your heaviest furniture, bookshelves, solid oak tables, appliances, and wedge them against the primary ingress points. You are not just locking a door. You are building a static fortification. This is simple physics. You are increasing the joules of energy required to breach your sanctuary to a level that exceeds the calorie expenditure a predator is willing to risk. Once the physical barriers are engaged, you must address the optical vulnerabilities. Windows are the eyes of the structure, and right now, they are hemorrhaging tactical data. Every photon of light and every movement seen from the street converts your location into a target. Close the blinds, draw the heavy drapes, and secure them. If you have raw materials, board them up from the inside, but do so in absolute silence. Sound is a traitor. The neighbors you exchanged pleasantries with yesterday are now potential competitors in a zero-sum game of calorie bankruptcy. If they hear the rhythmic thud of a hammer, or the screech of furniture dragging, they know you are fortifying. That implies you have assets worth protecting, which instantly categorizes you as a high-value loot drop. Your goal is to make the structure appear dormant, harvested, and empty. Do not step onto the porch to survey the chaos. Do not open the door for anyone, not a crying child, not a frantic neighbor, not a uniform you cannot verify. Empathy in the initial phase of collapse is a confident mistake that leads to a kill mechanism. A plea for help is often a probe to test your defenses, or a Trojan horse to bypass your deadlock. The psychology of the mob is predatory and opportunistic. Do not offer them an invitation. You are now inside the wire. Secure the garage access, check the basement wells, and verify that your perimeter is hermetically sealed against the chaos outside. The hard lockdown is not just about keeping people out. It is about keeping the reality of your survival hidden. Biology is the strictest dictator you will ever face. You can survive weeks without food, but without water, your cognitive function degrades within 24 hours, and you will reach terminal failure within 3 days. While the masses are panic buying bread and milk, perishables that will rot within the week, you must exploit the laws of fluid dynamics immediately. The municipal water system relies on electric pumps to maintain positive pressure against gravity and friction. When the grid fails, those pumps stop. The only thing keeping water flowing is the residual pressure remaining in the lines and the gravity feed from local water towers. This is a finite resource that is draining rapidly as thousands of panicked neighbors flush toilets and fill glasses. You are in a race against hydraulic equilibrium. Execute the hydraulic harvesting protocol instantly. Move to the bathroom and scrub the bathtub with ruthless efficiency. This is your primary reservoir. Plug the drain, seal it with duct tape if necessary to ensure a watertight bond, and turn the cold water tap to full flow. A standard bathtub holds 40 to 80 gallons of water. In a survival scenario where rationing is strict, this single action secures weeks of life for a small group. While the tub fills, mobilize every vessel in the house. Fill pots, pans, buckets, and sturdy plastic bins. If you have heavy-duty trash bags, line cardboard boxes with them and fill them up. Do not hesitate. Every gallon you secure now is a gallon you do not have to fight for later, when the streets are ruled by violence and calorie bankruptcy. Simultaneously, you must secure the hidden reserves within your infrastructure. Your hot water heater is a 40 to 50 gallon tank of potable water, but only if you isolate it immediately. Locate the intake valve on top of the heater and shut it off. In a grid-down scenario, as municipal pressure drops, a vacuum effect can occur, sucking the water out of your home and back into the main lines. Or worse, allowing sewage and groundwater to siphon in through cracks in the depressurized pipes. By closing that valve, you trap a sterile reserve that is decoupled from the failing grid. Do not drink from the tap once the pressure starts to sputter. That is the sound of the system aspirating contaminants. You are harvesting the last breath of the civilization's infrastructure. While others are paralyzed by the shock of the event, you are relying on physics to secure the only asset that truly matters. In a post-collapse environment, visible abundance is a death sentence. The moment the social order dissolves, the population enters a state of immediate calorie bankruptcy. Hunger strips away morality and replaces it with predatory instinct. If a hostile element breaches your perimeter and discovers a stockpile of neatly organized canned goods, rice, and water, you have just validated their violence. You have become a loot drop, a high-value target that rewards aggression. Your survival depends on the principle of inventory submergence. You must alter the visible inventory of your environment so that your home appears just as desperate and barren as the rest of the starving world. Do not consolidate your resources in the kitchen. The kitchen is the first operational objective for any looter because it is the logical center of consumption in the old world. To a raider, a pantry is a vault. You must empty it. Disperse your critical assets, your high-density calories, your water, your medical supplies, throughout the structure in unconventional, illogical locations. Store canned goods under the floorboards, inside the box springs of mattresses, behind false panels in the attic, or buried in the insulation of the walls. Physics dictates that matter occupies space, but psychology dictates where eyes look. Raiders operating on adrenaline and fear will scan surface-level containers. They rarely have the time or cognitive patience to deconstruct the architecture of a house. However, do not strip the kitchen entirely bare. An empty house is suspicious. It suggests you have hidden the goods or that you have fled, prompting a more thorough, destructive search or an interrogation of the occupants. You must engineer a sacrificial layer. Leave a few half-empty boxes of stale crackers, a jar of expired condiments, or some low-value bulky items in the cupboards. This satisfies the psychological need of the looter to win. It offers a path of least resistance. They kick in the door, grab the meager scraps visible, and leave, believing they have picked the carcass clean. You are manipulating their confirmation bias. They expect you to be starving, so show them starvation. Every item you possess must be categorized by value and risk. High-value items, weapons, ammunition, antibiotics, high-calorie MREs must never be visible to a casual observer, even a guest you think you trust. In a timeline where supply chains have ceased, information is as dangerous as a virus. If one neighbor sees a case of water in your hallway, the entire block will know within an hour. Your inventory is your life support system. Keep it submerged, keep it dispersed, and ensure that if your perimeter is breached, the enemy leaves with scraps, not your survival. When the grid collapses, the artificial glow of civilization vanishes, returning the world to a primordial darkness that modern humans have forgotten how to fear. In this vacuum, a single photon is a traitor. Physics dictates that light travels in straight lines, but in a blackout scenario, the contrast ratio is so extreme that the flame of a single candle or the glow of a smartphone screen becomes a beacon visible for miles. This is a vector for target acquisition. If you emit light, you signal existence. If you signal existence, you signal resources. To a desperate mob navigating by touch and fear, a lit window is not a sign of hope. It is an advertisement for a loot drop. You must enforce strict light discipline immediately to avoid the kill mechanism of being identified as a haven in a chaotic world. Your perimeter must be a black hole. You have already secured the physical barriers, but now you must seal the optical leaks. Inspect every window from the exterior perspective. If you can see even a hairline fracture of light escaping from behind your blinds, a predator can see it too. Use heavy blankets, cardboard, or mattresses to create total blackout conditions. Duct tape the edges. You are not just hiding from prying eyes, you are erasing your signature from the local environment. The goal is to make your shelter indistinguishable from the abandoned, looted structures surrounding it. This is the essence of the gray man philosophy applied to architecture. You must blend into the dead noise of the collapse. Inside the perimeter, you must alter your biological behavior. Do not use white light. The human eye relies on the protein rhodopsin in the rod cells for scotopic night vision. White light bleaches rhodopsin instantly, blinding you to the shadows where threats hide, and requiring up to 30 minutes for full biological recovery. Use red light exclusively if illumination is required. Red light has a longer wavelength and lower energy, which allows you to navigate your interior without destroying your night vision or projecting a high visibility beam through a crack in your defenses. Furthermore, you must compartmentalize your light usage. Treat your home like a submarine running silent. Create light locks. Never open an interior door to a lit room without first closing the door behind you. Establish a dark room where absolutely no light is permitted, and use this for sleeping or resting. The psychological pressure of total darkness is heavy, but the alternative is being illuminated in a crosshair. Darkness is no longer something to be feared. It is now your primary armor. By controlling the photons, you control the information battlefield. If they cannot see you, they cannot calculate the vectors of violence required to take what is yours. Visual camouflage is useless if you are screaming your location through other spectrums. Humans are multisensory predators, and in the absence of the old world cacophony, traffic, industrial hum, HVAC systems, the ambient noise floor drops to absolute zero. In this vacuum, sound travels with terrifying clarity. A generator running in a suburban backyard is not a survival tool. It is an auditory air raid siren inviting every desperate soul within a mile radius to your doorstep. You must eliminate your auditory signature immediately. Do not run engines. Do not chop wood. Do not engage in loud debates. You must enforce a regime of silence that defies your previous social conditioning. Sound waves are physical energy. They penetrate walls and travel vast distances in the cold, still air of a dead city. If you break the silence, you break your security. Next, you must address the olfactory vector. Smell is the most primitive and direct pathway to the predatory brain. In a state of calorie bankruptcy, the scent of cooking meat, spices, or coffee is a biological trigger that overrides fear. If you cook high-aroma foods, you are broadcasting your surplus to the wind. Eat cold rations. If you must cook, boil water only, or do it deep inside the structure with windows sealed, though that is a risk you should not take in the first 72 hours. Conversely, you must manage the scent of your existence. If your perimeter smells of bleach, soap, and sanitation, while the street smells of unwashed bodies, smoke, and sewage, you stand out. You are a loot drop because cleanliness implies resources and order. This extends to your physical person. This is the core of the gray man protocol. If you must show your face, you cannot look well-fed, rested, or clean. A healthy human in a dying world is an anomaly that attracts violence. You must camouflage your biological status. Do not wear bright tactical gear that screams combatant or prepper. Wear what the refugees wear. Smudge dirt on your face and under your fingernails. Alter your gait to mimic fatigue or injury. Hunch your shoulders to hide your silhouette. You need to look like you have already been harvested, like you are visibly bankrupt of calories and hope. If a predator looks at you, their brain should register waste, not resource. Your goal is to be invisible, not by disappearing, but by becoming indistinguishable from the background noise of misery. The passive defense of the gray man protocol is your shield, but you must now forge your spear. If the perimeter is breached, the physics of camouflage fails, and you are left with the raw calculus of kinetic energy. You must immediately apply the multiplier rule to your environment. A firearm locked in a safe, a baseball bat in the closet, or a knife in a drawer are not weapons. They are dead inventory. They only become force multipliers when they are staged, zeroed, and primed for immediate application. You must transition your psychology from that of a peaceful citizen to a combatant before the first threat appears. To wait until the door is kicked in to decide if you are capable of violence is a confident mistake that will result in your elimination. Walk your perimeter and identify the fatal funnels, the narrow hallways, stairwells, and doorways where an intruder is mechanically forced to constrict their movement. These are your kill zones. Stage your weapons here. A hammer hidden behind a bookshelf by the front door is infinitely more valuable than a rifle buried in the basement. You are preparing for close quarters chaos where reaction time is the only currency that matters. Check every mechanical device. If you have firearms, clean the factory oil, verify the magazines are seated, and chamber around. The sound of racking a slide is not a deterrent. It is a tactical error that gives away your position and intent. You want the element of surprise, not a cinematic standoff. You must also zero your mind. The average person possesses a deep-seated biological inhibition against harming another human being. In a civilized society, this is a virtue. In a collapse scenario, it is a catastrophic kill mechanism. You must visualize the act of defensive violence with cold objectivity. Understand that a predator breaching your sanctuary has already made the decision to trade your life for their survival. You are simply balancing the equation. Strip away the emotion. This is not murder. It is the physics of removing a threat to your biological continuity. If you cannot pull the trigger or swing the weapon with lethal intent, you are merely holding a tool that will be used against you. By the time the sun sets, you must be the most dangerous thing inside your walls. You have secured your water, fortified your structure, and zeroed your weapons. But there is one final enemy that you cannot kill. Only manage: your own biology. Fatigue is a creeping poison that degrades judgment, slows reaction time, and induces hallucinations. In a high-threat environment, the urge to sleep is the body's attempt to force recovery, but succumbing to it without a protocol is a confident mistake that results in a kill mechanism. In the old world, you slept for 8 continuous hours because the rule of law stood guard at your door. Tonight, that guard is gone. If everyone inside the perimeter sleeps simultaneously, you have voluntarily surrendered your security to chance. Probability is not a strategy. You must implement the circadian defense immediately. If you are part of a group, even a small family unit, you must establish a strict rotating watch schedule. The night must be divided into shifts of no more than 2 to 3 hours. Beyond that duration, the vigilance of a stationary sentry degrades due to cognitive fatigue. The person on watch is not merely staying awake, they are actively hunting. They must be positioned at a vantage point with a 360-degree awareness of the perimeter, listening to the silence, scanning for the light leaks you worked so hard to eliminate, and waiting for the breach. This is the multiplier rule applied to manpower. One awake, alert guardian is worth more than 10 sleeping soldiers. The watchman owns the lives of everyone in the structure. There is no margin for error. If you were a solo operator, the mathematics of survival become exponentially harder. You cannot maintain 24-hour vigilance without suffering rapid biological failure. You must rely on micro-sleep cycles and primitive early warning systems. You cannot trust your ears while unconscious, so you must recruit physics to wake you. Rig noise traps at every entry point. Empty cans filled with pebbles balanced on door handles, tripwires strung across hallways attached to bells, or piles of broken glass under windows. You need an acoustic trigger that creates a sharp, chaotic noise sufficient to spike your adrenaline and snap you from REM sleep to combat readiness in a microsecond. Do not sleep in a bed. A bed is a psychological anchor to comfort and vulnerability. Sleep on the floor, near your primary exit or defensive position, fully clothed with your boots on, and your weapon within arm's reach. You are not resting. You are recharging a biological battery just enough to function for the next operational window. The night is no longer a time for dreams. It is the operational theater of the predator. By strictly managing your circadian rhythm, you ensure that when the threat arrives, and it will arrive, it meets a conscious, lethal intellect rather than a sleeping victim. The sun has finally set, and with it, the last vestiges of the world you knew have evaporated. Do not waste a single moment mourning the loss. Nostalgia is a cognitive trap that disconnects you from the present reality. You are now standing at 0 hour of a new epoch, where the only currency is caloric energy and the only law is physics. The preparations you made in the last few hours, The hydraulic harvesting, the perimeter hardening, the silence are not a temporary measure. They are the foundational operational protocols of your new existence. There is no cavalry coming over the hill. There is no restoration of the grid. You are the cavalry. You are the infrastructure. You are the only authority within your perimeter. The fear you feel is a biological signal. Do not ignore it, but do not let it paralyze you. Compress that fear into focus. Do not look for a return to normalcy. Expecting the old world to reboot is a confident mistake that leads to a kill mechanism. Instead, embrace the cold logic of the long night. You have survived the initial shock, but the mathematical probability of survival resets every single day. The margin of error is gone. Stand your watch. Trust your protocol. Survive.